Okay, the book of 1 Samuel. We are in chapter 11 today. And we're going to see that in those days, terms of surrender were a little more brutal than they are in these days. In these days, we start passing out food and free health insurance and benefits and free trailers to live in. We're going to see what the terms of surrender here were for Israel, that their enemies bestowed upon them. And we'll see if they give in to it. So here we go. 1 Samuel chapter 11. Then Nahash of the Ammonites came up and encamped against Jabesh Gilead, which was part of Israel. And all the men of Jabesh said unto Nahash, Make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. In other words, we will be your slaves, just don't kill us off. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may put out your right eye, all of you, and lay it for a reproach upon Israel. So he's going to put out all their eyes on the right-hand side. They'll be walking around like this for the rest of their lives. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, Give us 7 days' respite, that we may send messengers unto all the coasts of Israel, and then if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. Then came the messengers of Gibeah unto Saul, and told the tidings in the ears of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And right, you would weep too. That's not very nice, precious. And behold, Saul came after, and he heard of the commotion and of the terms of surrender. And Saul said, What aileth the people? They ail. They woe. They're mourning. They're sick. And something happened that day in the heart of Saul. And the Spirit of God is going to show Israel the power of a king that's been endowed with the Spirit of God. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard those tidings, and his anger was kindled greatly, as it should be. There's a time to be angry. Be righteously angry, but don't put out cursings with your mouth. Be angry for the right reason. That's okay. That's good. Be angry and sin not. Anger is not the sin. What you do, make sure you're not blaspheming out of your mouth. Make sure you're not saying obscenities. For the right reasons, it's good to be angry. And he took a yoke of oxen and hewed them in pieces and sent them throughout all the coasts of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, Whosoever cometh not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done unto his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. In other words, this was kind of like the draft. After Pearl Harbor in World War II, they just kind of put out the call. And the men of America responded and mustered their forces to get involved in World War II. And when he numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said unto the messengers that came, Thus shall you say unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, Tomorrow, by the time the sun is hot, ye shall have help. And the messengers came and showed to the people of Jabesh, and they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, Tomorrow we will come out unto you, and ye shall do with us that seemeth good unto you. So they used a little ploy. They used a little ruse on their enemies to kind of put their guard down. It's like, okay, yeah, they're going to do what we say. But really there's a force en masse coming upon them. And it was so on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the hosts of the morning watch, and slew the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. Now that is a victory. And the people said unto Samuel, Who is he that said, Shall Saul reign over us? Bring the men that we may put them to death. And Saul said, There shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath wrought salvation in Israel. Then said Samuel to the people, Come and let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. And there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord. And there Saul and the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. It was a great victory, and they wanted to have a great feast before the Lord of celebration and rejoicing in what God had done. Because it wasn't just Saul and his army. Quite frankly, it was the Lord working in the army, in the military, by force. Because God does have militaries march out and take down evil regimes. He does. And he can use an even eviler regime to take them down, or a righteous regime. Either one. God can use either one. Sometimes he uses an evil regime to bring down a more evil regime. Like Israel was practicing evil, we're going to see later on in history, and he brought in the Egyptians, he brought in the Assyrians, he brought in the Babylonians, he brought in the Medo-Persians. And they were evil. They were immersed in idolatry and pagan practices. But God used them to judge a righteous nation because the righteous nation had turned to sin and wickedness, and God judged them. God sat as Lord, as King of the earth, when the earth was being judged by a flood. God sat as king over the earth when the Babylonians drug off Israel to Babylon. God sat as king over the earth as God allowed the Nazi regime to endure and press upon the Jewish people the Holocaust, because they had rejected their Messiah, and there was time for a rebirth of the nation. But they weren't ready for it. They didn't want that. They were comfortable in their little wicked lives of rejecting Christianity. They were happy rejecting God and just practicing their little, Kabbalah and a little bit of religion. But you can't have that. If you're shown the truth, then it's up to you to respond to it. Now, those were the negative things. It was also God sitting upon the throne that allowed Israel to come back into the land after World War II and set up the nation once again as a test. Here you are. Let's try it again. Let's see. You were sent your Messiah. Now, how will you respond? They were allowed to come back in the land. So I ask you this question. I ask you, my brethren out there that are Jews. Has Israel responded to their Messiah, Jesus, that died on the cross for them? God has allowed them to be in the land. God has protected them, allowed them to be fruitful again. How has Israel responded to that? I'll let you answer that question. Okay, God bless you, friends. Next time, we'll pick up in chapter 12 of 1 Samuel, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.